Oops. Oops, Sally. I started off with an oops right off the bat. How you like that? Hey, it's a lot of fun.
It's launch day.
It's launch day for this book, Embracing the Impact of Cancer. Oh, incredible stories, transformational stories of hope. We're going to be interviewing the authors today. So please, stay tuned. If you know somebody, or if you have heard those words, you have cancer, this is definitely a broadcast that you want to pay attention to. We have these incredible stories of these people who embrace the impact of it. There are so many different ways you can go when you hear those words. Which route are you going to take? Well, these ladies and men in this book have chosen the route to embrace it and to not let it stop them from living their lives. So, Sally, what's your favorite part of today's event that we've got coming up? Like, it hasn't even happened, but what's your favorite part already?
I love interviewing the authors, and my favorite part is always, especially our first time authors, when they see the book for the first time, and when they're out there, and it's just so, for me, because when I first shared my story, it was scary, and I think, and especially this topic with these people, it's a healing process, going through the writing, and then the submitting, hitting that submit button, and then seeing your actual story and your name in print in a book.
Yeah.
So that's I want to hear their stories. I want to hear what they've thought of the process, especially these women that are here today, because it's been a journey for them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to bring them up. And before we do that, I just want to share with you that, the book is launching today. Is the official launch day. You can get your copy at actiontakerspublishing.com/impact, and not only get your copy of the book, but also there are free gifts that some of our authors have given. So go over there, cash in on those free gifts, get your copy of the book. It's only $1.99 on Kindle. If you're in a different country, at our website, you'll see the different flags that you can click on that will take you directly to that country. So first, before we bring our other guests on, I want to bring on Heather Carter. This was Heather's brainchild, and I just love that you brought this to us, Heather, and so fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us and for being here on the broadcast today. I would love for you to share, what was it that compelled you to want to bring this book out into the public?
Well, actually, you'll probably laugh at this, but you compelled me to do it, because I think I called you about something completely different, because I have a couple other books, and someone connected me to you. I didn't know. I'm like, okay, I'll call and talk to her. And the next thing I know, by the time I got the phone, I was writing a cancer book. So that's how that came about. That wasn't really my goal going into our conversation. I didn't know really what you did, but by the time I got off, we're like, okay, that sounds like a good way to take the next step and bring my story to light in a little bit more specific way. So
I love that. It's like, okay, I did not hypnotise her. But it's interesting, because you never know where conversations are going to go. And I just think remembering back, thanks for reminding me that, because I'd forgotten that was how it happened. And I think just, going back to that time, it's like the stories were so fascinating, like your own story. I was just surprised at how you had, embraced it. You didn't let it stop you. And so that right there was enthralling to me. And then you had mentioned, if I remember correctly, you mentioned that you knew some other people that also had, embraced the impact of cancer. And so thank you so much for bringing it to us. And here we are on launch day. We made it, Heather. Oh my gosh. That was
I know.
That was
I can't
a journey
believe
together,
it.
right? We're here. So I'm going to bring up our two of our authors today. We've got Dina Legland, and we have Lauren and Gelke Smith. I'm hoping I pronounced your last name right there, Lauren. You're just so you know, you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome. What I wanted to do first is I want to share your
Hi, ladies.
Hello. Awesome. Good to see you. I want to share your chapter titles and then ask you why that chapter title came up. So I'm going to start with you, Heather. You want to share with us My Soul Selfie. Why don't you share what that is all about? Can you hear me, Sally?
Well, as I mentioned, I have a couple other books out, and Y'all good?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Heather.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple other books published, and they're called Soul Selfie and Soul Selfie #No Filter. And it's basically just, it came about as I was in the hospital with Mia. In 2015 is when I was diagnosed, and I was in for 35 days right out of the gate. And, you know, about the first week we started a blog to update people on the status of my cancer. And that pretty quickly morphed into the status of my soul and what was going on and how I felt about what was happening to me. And then it kind of branched out into other parts of my life that I would unpack and reflect on in these blogs. And so my first book is the 120 blogs I wrote during my cancer journey. And my second book is the second chunk of 120 blogs. So the idea of Soul Selfie is just that it really felt like when I was in the hospital specifically, and some other things surrounding that God just said to me, you know, you've spent a lot of time taking snapshots of everybody else's behavior and trying to imitate it or judging it. And you're a full-time job, Heather, and I need you to just turn that camera back around and focus on yourself. And in doing that, I felt like it healed some things in me, but also helped other people feel encouraged in wherever they were on their journey of life. So the Soul Selfie is, you know, mind your own business, and that tends to help other people more than when you mind their business. They don't like that as much.
Yep. You're muted, Lynda.
What the heck? Oh, I don't know how that happened. Okay, I didn't touch.
Yeah.
I promise I didn't touch anything. The StreamYard isn't liking me this morning. Yeah, exactly. So, thank you so much for sharing that, and sharing because there's so often that we're looking out to others or looking after others, and we forget that there's ourselves that we do need to take care of. And so maybe this is the way God was sending you the message. It's time to take care of you, girl. Right? Look at yourself. Yeah. So, next up is Lauren.
Yep.
Lauren, we have your chapter
to do.
Okay, so Heather, we're having some delay from you. It's almost like you're in India or something. It's like very delayed, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah. I'm wondering, can you put some earbuds in? Maybe that'll help a little bit. I'm not sure.
You guys
try that.
Why don't you keep talking? I'm gonna take my computer upstairs, so if you can take the picture off for a minute.
Okay.
I'll pop back on when I'm in a dead spot.
There we go. Okay, I kicked her out of here. Okay, so next up we have Lauren. Lauren, the title of your chapter is A Tragic Journey Full of Blessings. Like, how did you come up with that title of your chapter?
Well, I didn't think too hard about it because if I do, I'd come up with something that doesn't come from the heart. But, when you're told you have cancer, I mean, like all your, the people that you've known that had it, you start thinking really negatively. And I didn't want that to happen. So, I would always remain positive. That's kind of my theme of my chapter. And, even though this was a tragic journey, I had many, many things happen and I'd go through a lot of hard things. I can't even put into words how many blessings I saw through the journey. So, just looking at things positively and, even though you may go through something traumatic and tragic, look for the blessings every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. And I'm curious, were you always a positive person like that? Or is this something that kind of came on after your cancer diagnosis?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has happened to our family. Like, my youngest son, when he was born 10 years ago, he had to get a bone marrow transplant. The doctor still has no idea of what caused this, rare form of anemia. But, me and my husband's always like forward thinking, like everything will be fine. And I'm like, no, it won't because of this. So, he keeps me positive, thinking, okay, don't read anything on Google and, don't read the pamphlets they give you. Everybody's journey's different. And I think just taking those ideas, and then, once something does come about, thinking in that way, you have to look at it from a positive perspective if you want the ending to be positive.
That's a great message. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that and for being part of this book. Are you a first-time author?
Sort of. Yeah, I wrote out of my first teaching year, I wrote something called Respect Theory, and it's basically all letters in respect stand for something as a teacher you can do to be develop respectful relationships with students. And I did put that on Amazon. Of course, no one bought it. So it wasn't really published, I guess. But I have a whole teacher workshop surrounding that topic. But no, I've never been interviewed about books or anything like that, or have shared my story in written form until now. So this was a awesome opportunity for me to do that. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us and putting your story out there. So next up we have Dina, and let's see, Dina, the title of your chapter is Caretaker to Cancer Patient, Accepting Support on This Journey. And so why don't you share with us a little bit about that chapter title?
Thank you, Lynda. That title is truly what I went through. Being a nurse for over 30 years, being a local EMT for the fire department for over 30 years, and being the one in the family who took care of everybody. I was always taking care of somebody else. And my cancer journey and my diagnosis really made me realize the fears that I was facing. And the two major fears that I was facing was the fear of not being loved and being judged because I had to take care of myself first and not feel guilty about it. And through this journey, a lot of people are like, what are you, crazy? You have a fatal diagnosis and you're worried about being judged and not loved? And I was like, yes, because it stemmed back from childhood, without a doubt. And I learned through, inner work on how to get through that. And that's why the title is Caretaker to Cancer Patient. And it was very hard to accept help for me because, like I said, I was the one that was always taking care of everybody else. And I had to set healthy boundaries. I had to say yes and no to certain things. And I really let go of toxic situations in my life as well. And my cancer journey said, it really put the halt on my life and said, you need to wake up. Look at what you've been doing for all these years and now take care of yourself.
That right there, that is a fascinating just thought right there, because if you think about it, sometimes it does. I know Sally talks about like having a 2x4, God sends a 2x4 over your head, like get the point.
I like that, Sally.
And just sometimes that's what it takes for us to slow down. Like my mom used to always say, you got to slow down to speed up. And I used to say, no, I don't. I have to go faster, because I didn't know any better. And I just thought my mom was full of it. That's why. And so as I get older, realizing that, yeah, we do need to slow down in order to speed up if we want to speed up. And so I'm curious throughout this journey that you've been on, then Dina, because you mentioned the fear of judgment and the fear of not being loved, and that's that the fear of judgment is the number one fear in the world. And so if you think about it, like why do we have such terrible childhoods that we all have this fear of judgment? Not all of us, but most of us. Like we have this fear of judgment is, kids are mean and all these things. But I'm curious, Dina, so since you've been through this journey and you went from caretaker, to accepting help from others, are you still there, or did you go back to caretaker and not accepting help from others?
No, I didn't go back. There are times, let's face it, that you want to revert back to old habits. But the key here for me is that I am self-aware of it, and I don't let it control me anymore. So what I do is, if I start to feel like I'm just running for everybody else, I put the brakes on myself, and I'm like, all right, stop and think about this for a minute. Look at your calendar, you know, ask, the family if, this fits in the schedule. How is it going to serve me? Is it going to upset me? Is it going to be a toxic situation? And I've learned not to revert back. Is it always easy? No. I'm going to be honest, it's not always easy. And I've just learned how to accept it, move through it quicker. And there's times I'm like, nope, I'm not even going to go that way. I'm done. I put the brakes on it.
Good for you. And it is that awareness, right? Okay, Sally,
Yeah.
I got to do it. I have awareness. I have awareness now. I have awareness. How now, brown cow? I have awareness. I have awareness now. It's time for me to move on, like Donkey Kong.
That's so cool.
That's my little awareness ditty. So, Sally, you have a question for Dina. I just know you do.
You talked about the people like that supported you, and you said something about the toxic, the environment. So what did it mean to you to have the support of the people that were there? But did you also get rid of some toxic relationships in this process?
Yes, I actually got rid of 2 toxic relationships. One was a job, to be honest with you. When I was going through my cancer journey, I had a boss who wasn't very nice. And it was rough, because I would go to work every day and there was always a comment. There was always something being said. I always I felt unworthy, to be honest with you. And I'm like, I'm going through a cancer journey and I'm getting flack from my boss. And the support from my husband and my daughters and some friends and even some coworkers, they were like, so supportive when I made the decision to not go back to work or go back there. It was the best thing I ever did. And I also had a friendship over 20 years that this person didn't know how to handle my cancer journey. They were distant. They never called me. They never talked to me. They never did anything. And I was brave enough to turn to that person and say, what is the problem? What is the deal? And they said to me, it's not about you. It's about me. I just don't know how to handle the situation. And I said, well, to me, that's not a friend. And I let that relationship go.
Wow, good for you. Yeah, it is tough. And sometimes we just need to do that. We need to drop pull up the anchor. They're anchoring us down. And we need to pull up the anchor and fly the balloon like Winnie the Pooh. So Lauren, I want to send Sally's question over to you. So did you have any toxic relationships that disappeared, throughout this journey? We can,
you muted yourself again. Can we unmute her?
I can't unmute her. Okay, well, where'd Heather go? We're having an interesting show this morning. I can't unmute Lauren. She can't unmute herself. Heather's back. Okay, let's do this. Heather, we're to you. Okay, we're in the kitchen now. What are we eating?
Yeah,
what
we're
do we have for
walking
breakfast?
around a little. I just wanted to show you my house because I was on vacation and my husband cleaned it really nice while I was gone. So I don't think my service is working downstairs. So we're coming upstairs.
This sounds better because it sounds like you can hear us now, or in tune with each other. So if you could answer the question, Heather, the question was, were there any toxic relationships, during this journey that you ended up either having to get rid of or that just kind of disappeared?
Well, I don't think I had anything that was majorly toxic, but I did have, there were some people that just, like I think someone mentioned before, maybe it was Dina was saying that they just didn't know what to say or how to say it. And so they just kind of disappeared. And it was surprising the people that rose up to help, a lot of strangers, a lot of people from church. But I was surprised at some of the people that just disappeared for a while. And so that's one of the things that I love about being able to give someone this book, is that maybe you can say to someone, I don't know what you're going through. I have no idea what to say, but here's some people who might know how you're feeling. And it gives someone a chance to maybe not disappear and show up with something that's not just more cards or flowers or balloons. And I don't know, I think hopefully we'll give some words for people to pass on when they don't know what to say.
And you,
Okay. StreamYard does not want me to talk today, and I'm
I
okay
don't,
with
when
that.
when I mute me, I think it's muting you too.
Let's see.
It's
Let's
Dina.
test it out right now. Test it out, Sally. Mute yourself. Let's see what happens. No, I didn't get muted. Okay, I don't know. Okay, anyway. Anyway, a good point there is people don't know what to say. This is it's like when somebody passes away, we don't know what to say. When somebody's really ill, we don't know what to say. When we meet somebody who has like a physical, like what we call a deformity, we don't know what to say, right? We just don't know what to say. So what do we say? Lauren, what do we say? If you say, you know what, I just found out I have cancer. What do we say?
Yeah, I didn't it was hard telling people, especially the people I cared about. So it was really hard to have those conversations. And going back to the, affected relationships, that I was new at my job right after I got done with all the cancer treatments, and coming into, my 28th year in education, and out of the cancer, because that changes your life, and way your perspective on things. So not everybody was empathetic to me just coming back to, full-time job, teaching, and they didn't know me because it was a new job. So, learning, seeing their perspective and understanding other people's perspective definitely helps me, sift out, instead of me thinking it's a negative thing about how they're treating me. I look at, well, maybe they don't understand this. Maybe if I explain a little bit more on about my needs, or they want to help and they don't know how, just like you said, making sure that I'm clear about that, and accepting the help. That's hard. I can't. It's very hard still for me to do that. We're going through something with my son right now, so accepting help is hard for us. But just making sure that I'm focused on helping people through this journey too, because it's not just my journey; it's my family's, my friends, my coworkers. Everybody's involved in some way. So just making them understand what their part can be is helpful.
Thanks for sharing that. Truly appreciate that. That's a great advice there. And so I'm going to send it over to Dina, because you mentioned something that really Dina's chapter is about, is accepting help, as a caregiver who became a cancer patient. So Dina, how do you accept help? So you've been diagnosed, and let's say it's not you, but just somebody else, because you do work with, patients. And so how does a person learn to accept help, especially when it's kind of like, boom, the ball has been dropped on you?
Yes, I would say that we have to look and really sit with ourselves and say, what do I need help in? What would take something off my plate, whether it's running the kids to an after school activity, if you have younger ones. Um, you know, it could be, going shopping. I need milk, eggs, and bread, whatever it might be. It's those little things that alleviates the stress and the worry that we might have. It's things like that. When you first do it, you get this lump in your throat. Your heart might be a little racy. It's like, I have to ask for help. Like, are they going to once again judge me because I can't do this? I can't take care of myself. We put so much pressure on ourselves. It's our perception on how somebody else is going to respond. And when I first did it one or two times, I kept worrying about what were they going to say. And the words that they said to me when I asked them to do something that I needed help in something, they were like, okay, got it. No worries. So I worried for a day or two over something. They just said, okay, I'll help. No worries. People want to help. Allow them to help, but know what you need as maybe a cancer patient, or even if you're the caregiver, just tell me. If you don't want anything today and you just want me to sit here and be quiet next to you, I'll do that. There's just so many little things that people can do, and they want to help you.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's important to note there that what I took from that, Dina, is that we need to know what we want help with and or need help with. We need to know what our needs are. And a lot of times people will say, just tell me how I can help, but we don't know how to tell them how they can help. So we really need to tap in. We need to say, this is what I really, truly need. And if it is, like you said, if I just need somebody to sit and watch TV with me and not talk,
Right.
like that's a need. And so it's just knowing what those needs are. So before we go to our next group of interviews, I want to just go around to the horn here. I'm going to ask you guys, what's like one thing you want the audience to take away from after reading this book, Embracing the Impact of Cancer? So I'm going to start with you, Dina.
Okay. The one thing is truly you come first. And please don't feel guilty about making decisions that you need to as a cancer patient or in remission, whatever it might be. Just remember, you come first, and it's not selfish, it's self-care.
It's not selfish, it's self-care. Awesome. Thank you so much. Lauren, what is something you want the readers to take away from reading the book? Yeah, you're not
Definitely
muted.
be
Oh, there we go.
positive. Have a positive outlook. It's not easy to have a positive outlook when you get told, you have cancer, but, just keeping your eyes and your mind on what is going well. What did you conquer today? Sometimes it was getting out of bed. That was or getting my feet back up on the bed. Sometimes it was making it to the bathroom. Sometimes it was, I even made it kind of my daily routine of writing cards to friends and sending them from the hospital to encourage them. So just doing things that are positive and, concentrating on those, I think that's really what got me through everything.
I love that idea of you sending cards to people, because most of the time, when you're in the hospital, people are sending you stuff. So I love that idea that you said, you know what, I'm going to send a positive reinforcement to other people. So be positive, I love that. Heather, what is one thing that you would like the audience or the readers to walk away with after reading this book?
I think I kind of echo what the girls are already saying, but just the fact that you can start using your journey for something good right now, no matter if you're in the middle of it. One of the things that I look at when in my first book, my first entry is a blog post I wrote, and I think it was March 29th, because they're all dated in my book. But I got out of ICU I couldn't walk or talk or sit up or roll over or do anything by myself on March 3rd. So I didn't even know if I was going to kick cancer in the butt or not. I just was thinking, well, you know what? This is what I got. This is where I am. So how can I use what I'm going through? You know, I say all the time, we go through what we go through so we can help others get through what we went through. And you can start, you know, whether you have cancer or any other kind of stressor in your life that seems like it's going to consume you, that you can flip that around and use it for something good and do things like write notes to other people. You know, you can get better or you can get bitter. And these are all people in this book that have chosen to get better and let life teach them what it needs to teach them, no matter where they're at. So I hope other people will get that message.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that as well. You can get better or you can get bitter. Like that's that's a really good one. And it's just like for anything in life, you know, just thinking about that, we can either get better or we can get bitter. So thank you, ladies, so much for being here. I'm going to send Lauren and Dina down into the green room, and we're going to bring up our next guest in just a moment. And these have just been fantastic stories. And thank you so much for sharing them. We're going to take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Sally, what'd you think of the first half hour? I can't hear you. I didn't mute you, I promise.
Why do I keep hearing the commercial in the background? Is that just on me?
That's on you. Okay, so we're having some really weird live
Bad
streaming issues
technical
today,
stuff. Yeah.
but it's all good. We're going to make it through it. So what'd you think
No,
of the first half hour?
That was great. I loved reading these stories and going through this book, and these women are amazing. They're just
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the lessons that, you know, that we learn through life. Sometimes it takes tragedy for us to learn certain lessons, but those lessons are imparted to others. Like we had, you know, selfish equals self-care. You'll be positive, staying positive. And I loved how Lauren, you're like, oh, I'm just going to send, you know, cards to other people. And I thought that was a really great idea. I don't know if I would have thought about that, you know, so thanks for sharing that, Lauren. And then use your journey for good, but get better or get bitter. Like these are our options that we have, really, if you think about it. And so these lessons that are learned can be, you know, imparted on other people, and hopefully they'll learn the lesson, you know, from us instead of having to go through what we went through. I think I can't remember exactly what Heather's saying was on that, but you got to go through what you go through to help others to get through what. Heather, what was it?
Get through what you go through what you go through so you can help others get through what you went through.
There we go. Yeah, I love that.
You almost got it.
I was close. At least I got some of the words right on that. Well, I'm so excited to bring up our next guest. We have Laura Sharp Waits in the house, and we have Jess Riney in the house as well. Ladies, it's good to see you today. How's everything going? Going good? Okay, awesome. Well, you are best-selling authors for the book, the #1 best-selling authors for the book, Embracing the Impact of Cancer. Congratulations. One of the things we're shooting for today on this launch day is to hit international. So if you are tuning in from another country other than the US, we've got Canada, Australia, UK, India, France, España. And there's all kinds of places, whatever. Just go to our website at actiontakerspublishing.com/impact. And when you land on our website, you'll see flags of different countries. Click on the flag that represents where you are and purchase the Kindle version there. That would be awesome. That'll help us to hit international bestseller status, which we're really shooting for. So ladies, welcome. It's so good to see you today. I want to put on the screen here the titles of your chapters. I'm going to ask you, like, how did you come up with those titles? So Jess, your title is Together We Can Do Anything. And why don't you share with us, like, what does that title mean to you, and how did you come up with that chapter title?
Sure. The title it means everything to me because through my chapter, I really focused on my caregivers, my family, my A team, my backup who came in whenever we needed it. Together we can do anything is something my grandma, who passed away during my journey, that's something she often shared, and she wrote to me. And whenever I first started my first round of chemotherapy, and that was something included in the card was together we can do anything. And so I held on to that, and I needed it. I'm a stay-at-home mom, trying to figure out what's next because my youngest is going off to kindergarten next year. But when I didn't have any sick days, I was taking care of the kids during the pandemic, and so I needed support for sure. So I also want people to know, because of my experience, that I want to be there for others. I want to show up and be a support to others that are going through a similar journey. So I want people to remember that together, whether or not that's your immediate support system or an extended support system, we can do this.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And what a tribute to your grandmother. That is truly a great blessing. So thank you for sharing that and sharing your story in this book. So next I'm going to ask Laura. Laura, the title of your chapter is We All Carry Shame. The question is how much? So why don't you share with us that, like, why you came up with that chapter title and what does that mean?
So during my journey, anytime a female has cancer, they can run into issues with breast cancer being not whole again. And so people tried to shame because, was I going to have a mastectomy? Would that leave me not whole? And it just started a whole snowball effect of people saying things that would either be shameful or blameful, that I had, purposely gotten cancer, or decisions I made it happen. And so I started looking through it during my journey and saying, there's a lot of shame that I'm doing, but there's a lot of shame others are doing. And I think the choice is how we carry it and what we do with it.
Wow. There are people who actually would shame you for getting cancer. Is that what you mean?
Yes. And for example, two gentlemen, well, I'll just say that lightly, asked my husband if he was going to leave me. We had been married a year and a half, and they said, well, she's not going to be whole anymore. And so he came home going, I can't believe people are asking this. I waited my entire life to meet you, to marry you. And now people are suggesting that I should leave you over something as silly as cancer. Yeah, I know.
Wow. That's awful. I can't believe, just the thought of people doing that. It just irks me, to no end. So I'm going to send it over to Heather. Yeah. Questions for Jess and Laura.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for being willing to be on here. Sometimes this can be like a hurdle that people are like, I do not want to be live on a camera. You got here after our technical difficulties we had this morning with my phone was not working and everything. So yeah, I loved hearing your stories before we even got to the book part, but I just love to hear a little more about just kind of what, the book is called Embracing the Impact of Cancer. So what changed in you, or what was maybe even more, how did you grow through this? How did you choose what we talked about earlier to get better instead of bitter? How did this change you in some good ways?
Let's start with Laura.
Well, the title, that embrace part, that really kind of, it threw me for a bit, because I started thinking, what is embracing, right? It's to hold, it's to clasp, it's to give someone a hug. And, how do you embrace something that's trying to kill you? And so that was a real big struggle for me. But it actually made me really think through all the blessings that I had during it. I do look back and say cancer was a blessing. I met some amazing people, had blessings of food and other stuff brought to the house. And, it's tough when you're struggling, because all you want to do is be in bed to recover. And people are calling and texting and saying, hey, I want to come over. And at one point I told my husband no. And within like 2 seconds, I felt God like donking me on the head saying, Laura, Don't deny them of their blessing. Let them come over, and then it won't be long, and it wasn't. Trying to realize that we can still move forward even though we have negative things going against us, and sharing that with my clients and all those who are dealing with whatever shame or blame or grief they're dealing with, and then having a cancer on top of it. We can, I love Heather's statement, get better or get bitter. I mean, a lot of people go there. They totally get bitter. And that's not what I encourage people to get better, get healing, and move on.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And Heather's, just so you know, everybody, Heather's having problems with getting in and out. So she'll hop out every once in a while and just kind of disappear, and then she'll come back. So Jess, why don't you answer the same question? Like, how did you embracing this impact?
Sure. I think I've said in my chapter, cancer set me free in some ways, or the phrase "sweeter after difficulty." I thought I was living life to the fullest before my cancer. I was appreciating each day, thankful for what I had, grateful for the people in my life. But then after facing cancer, and you've got something ahead of you that really could be the end of you, or during treatment, I feared something would happen during my treatment that would cause me not to make it all the way through that. And so I feel like it provided a perspective that I couldn't have gained without having gone through it. It's made me truly appreciate things in a different light. So I think that's kind of a unique experience that people go through whatever close call in life you might have, whether it be cancer or some other illness. It just creates kind of a stronger way of walking through the rest of life. So I've been able to embrace it in that sense. And as everybody else has said, the people who have shown up to embracing them and their unwavering support.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you again for sharing that. And we just don't know how we're going to respond or react to something like that until it actually happens to us. And people can judge all they want, but they don't know it until they've walked through it. So yeah, thank you all for sharing that. Sally?
Yeah, I'd like to know what part did having your mindset affect you through this journey, having that maybe a shift in your mindset and creating a positive mindset for yourself, and what was that role, and what did that look like for you, and how did you go about doing that? Laura?
My aunt, as soon as we learned about my diagnosis, brought me a big plaque that says I can do all things through Christ. And it sat on the mantle. And that was like my daily go-to to reset my mindset in the beginning. I would get to the point where it was all I could do. We live in the country, so my driveway's not close. And so I'd make myself go to the mailbox to get the cards. And I wouldn't open them until I got home because I wanted to make sure I made it home. And that was like my reward. But reading those cards, and I posted them on a wall like you'd hang up Christmas cards, and they hung up for 18 months. And if I were having a bad day, I would get up and go stand in front of the beautiful array of cards, and I'd find one that drew me, and I'd read the inspiration in it. And that would be what I would go to for that day. Because it can be tough. You can slip into some really bad, dark places if you allow yourself to. But, I think you have to really say, for me, it was God and my medical team. They're what pulled me through it. And so I knew if they were doing all they could, I needed to do all I could, which included having a good, positive mindset.
Oh, thanks. Jess, what were some of the things you did for your mindset? Sure.
One of the hardest things for me was the fatigue and just feeling like I was just stuck. I couldn't, I didn't have that energy that I could to keep up with my little kids. And I felt like here you're given a diagnosis and you want to start living the most out of every day, and you can't yet. You've got to push pause and you've got to get through the treatment. And then the hope is that you'll be thriving once again. But that was a psychological hardship for me. Figuring out how to be patient. I think I've always struggled a little bit with patience, and this challenged me even more to just sit with the hard moments. I watched my wife and my kids playing outdoors in the snow. I wish I could have joined them, but I wasn't feeling up to it, and I didn't want to risk being out in the cold weather. And so I just watched them out the window, and I remember smiling, thinking, I'm going to be out there again. I just need to sit and enjoy watching them. And so I enjoyed, I think that helped whenever I had that mind shift, and I just had to go through. I had to sit with that frustration. And my sister is a therapist, and she was always giving me good advice throughout my treatment. One of the best ones was, if you hit a wall, it's there for you to rest upon. And so she really encouraged me, don't rush out of the hard moments. Sit with it, and then let it help change your perspective and move on. And that's how I got through with trying to focus then on the positives. But really, it's just it's a growth experience that you just have to be patient as you're going through it.
I love that. I wanted to just comment on those, both of you, the mindset, because the mindset is where it all starts. And so as Jess is looking outside saying, I wish I could be out there, but also realizing that you can't be out there, and Dina talked about, self-care, self-care is necessary. And so really you had to think about yourself today so that you could experience tomorrow. And so thank you so much for sharing that, both of you. Heather, you have a question for them.
Ooh, that threw me off. Let me think. I was listening to their answers. I wasn't really thinking of any more questions. No, I love that because I think sometimes when we're in this, even though we can start wherever we're at in our journey to help other people, we also have to remember we are really, really sick. And we tend to, as probably human beings, even more specifically as women, I think we feel like we're validated when we're productive and we're doing things and serving and helping other people and helping our family. So it's really hard. Many people have talked about that. And maybe that's my question is, how did you allow yourself to receive, or how was it for you to receive help, to be in a helpless state and receive from other people? I found that very hard and humbling to watch other people clean my house. Or now, actually, I'm really trying to figure out a way to get people to clean my house again and bring me food and maybe even get in the hospital for a little bit. Sometimes that sounds good. Like I don't allow myself to rest unless I'm in the hospital. That's telling. So I don't know, maybe you guys can speak into that, like how that was for you.
Let's start with Jess.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say it's you have to embrace that vulnerability. It's a very vulnerable feeling to need the help. And I also didn't want to be a burden on my family. Everybody has their own hard, right? So mine was just one other hard thing. I didn't want everybody to worry about me either. And I wanted to show that, hey, I've got cancer, but I can still do these things. And I think once you figure out how to sit with that and accept that vulnerability, and I had to remember, if it was turned around, I'd want to be helping. I would want to be there. So just whenever you get to the point that you're ready to accept that help, it does become a little bit easier. But just like, I like the word embracing, embracing the impact of cancer, embrace the vulnerability, embrace being patient, all of that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love the flip it. I do the flip it thing all the time. So thanks for sharing that. And Laura?
It was tough. It was tough because I'm previously had been a special need teacher where you look out for everybody. You make sure everything's picked up before you leave a vacation or a field trip. And you're the one that plans and does. And knowing that I could plan it, but I couldn't fully, live it out was very frustrating and definitely humbling. My husband did a lot of it. My mother-in-law lives right next door. My parents live 45 minutes away. They drove 45 minutes to get me and then another 45 minutes for chemo. it's tough to let people do.
Mhm.
And at one point, I finally realized that while I had cancer, I was not going to let it have me. And by saying that, I mean that I was able to somehow come up with the inner turmoil that it was okay for others to help and bring meals. And as Heather said, clean your house. And oh my gosh, rest and take a nap because you were too tired to do anything else. There are days I opened the door and let the dog go out, hoping he'd come back quickly because I couldn't stand and wait for him. But it's tough
Mhm.
to allow people to do stuff and do it graciously when you're sick because you don't feel good anyway. And hear people doing things in your house, maybe not the way you would have done them. But you know what? It's all good. And if my husband puts stuff on the wrong place in the dishwasher now, I'm cool with that.
That just reminds me of my husband. He used to just throw all the silverware in the drawer, and I literally just throw it in there. And I have all those little dividers, and then and then I would always go fix it. And then one day I said, "What if I just start throwing them in there too?" So I just started throwing them in there too, and then I found out that now actually he puts them way inside the little dividers. So so sometimes you just got to play the game with them, right? And it makes it a lot easier. I think we have so many things, so many thoughts and ideas about how things should be done. And it's just really not that they have to be done these certain ways. These are just our ways of doing it. And so sometimes, like you mentioned there, Laura, so that brought you to a completely different mindset about something, you know, by going through this journey with him, you know, him helping you. So then I looked at it for my husband and I said, at least he's putting the dishes away. A lot of husbands don't do that. So instead of, you know, saying he's not doing it my way, it's to say, you know, I have gratitude that he's actually doing it, you know. So anyway, I have a question related to that asking for help thing, because this is a thing that I think a majority of people grapple with. So whether you're in a situation where you have, you know, been diagnosed with cancer or not, I mean, just asking for help. So what's your suggestion for people that, you know, let's start with Heather. Like, what's your suggestion for people that when it comes time to asking for help, how can we learn to ask for help before we need it? Heather's like, why are you starting with me?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the terrible one to start with this because this is one of my probably signature issues with myself, is just being vulnerable enough and willing to ask for help from someone else. Because even though I want to be vulnerable in certain parts of my life, more about my soul, I'm willing to share where I mess up. That part's pretty easy for me. But when I have to admit that I can't do it all, and that I might have to cancel an appointment, or you know, not do 75 things a day, I can only do 70 today, like that really bothers me. So it was very humbling and very, at first, uncomfortable to accept the help from people. And what I thought was kind of interesting too is there are people out there that are just there, like they're part of their life mission is to just help other people in circumstances that are hard. And it was funny because I did run into a lot of people who would come and clean my house and, like I said, weed my yard, bring me food, write me notes. I had several people that weren't even my closest friends. One lady, she texted me every single morning of the whole time I had cancer, and just saying, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Hope everything goes well today. Every single day. You know, just little things like that were helpful. And I remember those fondly, but there are people that I'll see out and about now, and they came and cleaned my house, and I'm like, hi, you know, like we're best friends, and they're like, hey, and they just kind of keep on walking. I'm like, wait, I thought we were, you know, we're all like family now. And I just realized some people they're just there to help. And when you're done with your needs, they move on to the next person. And that was weird for me because I thought once I went through this with you, we're besties for the rest of our lives, and they move on to the next person who needs help. And that's okay. That just was like a weird reality I hadn't experienced before. So I don't know if you guys had that experience at all, but kind of threw me off.
That's interesting, right? Because there's that saying, people come into our lives for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And sometimes the reason is to help us through that situation. And so that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. So Jess, how do you, well, I'm going to shift the question because, Heather made me realize that maybe that wasn't the right question to ask, but how are you today in asking for help? Now that you've gone through that situation, how are you today asking for help?
A lot better at it through the practice. I'd say so. First, giving yourself some grace, knowing that we try to do it all, but we just you can't, and that's completely okay. My sister actually my sister gave me good advice. That'll be something I say over and over again. She said, when you're asked on the spot, what do you need? And you don't really know in that moment. So she said, just take your time, make a list. And maybe, if then I shared a note with my mom and my sister and my wife, and had all the things that I was recognizing that I needed help with during my treatment. But that's something I've actually continued now. So I'll send a note to them and be like, okay, I've got this going on, so I'm going to need help with the kids. Who's willing to flip the coin and be here. So I'd say that as a recommendation to people, that just whenever you have a moment, take some time to think about those things that maybe you're struggling with. Maybe it's somebody to come and let your dog out for you at a certain time of day. Or my mom came and she had her of taking care of the dishes and helping if there was anything with meals. My sister would go pick up our yard after our dog and just taking out trash, actually. So it's funny, after my treatment was over, my son would still say, well, is Aunt Jen coming to do her chores? Or is grandma coming and gonna be helping out with this or that? So, and they still come over and they help out with those things every now and then to make life a little bit easier on us.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, send them over to my house, will you?
Yeah.
What about you, Laura? So as after, going through the cancer journey and embracing that impact of cancer, do you still ask for help today? And if so, what do you recommend that, people, what kind of tips do you have for people to keep asking for help?
I realized I can't do it all myself. God never intended that. He intended us to be in community. And so we're supposed to help each other with our burdens. So I have learned to ask. I pastor a small church here in our town, and even putting together our adult VBS, I said, okay, I'm going to need help with crafts. Who's a craft diva? I need help with activities. I need help with food and people. So it's so great that you help and don't try and do it all. I don't want to do it all anymore because I don't want the overwhelm and the stress. And it feels natural to ask and to allow people to shine with their gifts. Even picking up poop in the yard, right? That still takes a very special person to do that. And so, if they want to do that or do dishes, or show their craftness, whatever it is, I find it, it allows a spotlight to showcase somebody's talents and gifts by allowing them that opportunity to help.
That's great. I love that you said, because even if it's, picking up poop, because there are people out there like that doesn't bother them at all. And so what we don't realize is that there are so many different chores and tasks that we may not like to do. And so a lot of times we don't want to ask anybody to do the crap work, pun intended. And so, just to ask is something that it's actually a blessing to ask people for help. And just like Jess said, so flipping it, this is something I incorporate into my life, is that if I'm having a hard time doing something or saying something or what have you, I flip it around. I look at the other side to see what would it be like if I were on the other side? Would I want them to do this? Would I want them to say this? Would I want somebody to tell me about this? And so I often will flip it in my mind just so I could look at the other perspective to see if this is something I should do. So one of the things I started doing, I'm going to give this is a great piece of advice from Lynda that I'm going to give you, is that when you do ask for help, just changing one single word can make all the difference. Sometimes when we ask for help, we say, can you do this for me? If we change that one word can to will you do this for me, it's a completely different thing. Because a lot of times when we say, can you, what's the response? Well, yes, of course I can. So a lot of times people will get defensive when we say, can you? So I learned this, working with my husband, because he's like, of course I can do that. Like you think I'm stupid. Now, he doesn't say that, but that's how I interpret it. And once I started saying, will you, it completely changed the energy. And so this is something I'm learning now, like you all sharing your message about asking for help. This is good because we can learn to ask for help today before we need to ask for help tomorrow. So if we're already used to it, then when it comes time that we actually need that help in situations like this, that we are able to step up and we're able to say, you know what, this is what I need. And I love the idea of, making that list. That's a great idea. Make your list today. Start making your list of things that you need help with, and then ask people for help and just see how it goes, because you never know who's there to help you. And when we ask people for help, we're actually giving them a blessing of being able to help, because as was mentioned, is that, a lot of people out there, they just want to help. They just want to help, but they don't know how. So last words. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Jess. What are your last words that you would like for the audience to take away, by reading the book?
You're not in this alone. That I loved reading everybody else's chapters too. It was emotional at times, but it gives you the sense of camaraderie. This isn't a journey that any of us have, chosen to be on, but we're on it. We heard their words, you have cancer. And so we have, we can empathize with each other on a different level than anybody else that hasn't heard it. So I don't have a lot of other people that I'm friends with that have gone through cancer, luckily, thankfully. And I hope my life and my family and friends aren't touched by it too much. But it's so prevalent, it's likely to at some point. And I hope I can be a support to them as well, and use my experience to make them feel less alone. So that's what the biggest thing I want for people to think about. And something I close with my chapter is, you've got this even if you don't know it yet. That was something a friend of mine that passed from cancer shared with me in the initial days of my diagnosis, and I held on to it throughout my treatment. And at times I was convinced I can't do this, and I remember I kept thinking what Lisa said: "You've got this. You just don't know it yet."
Yeah. Thank you so much. You are not in this alone. Laura, last words for our viewers and the readers of the book.
Gather your tribe. You're on a journey, and your journey needs a tribe to help you where you are not going to be able to do it, where you're going to stumble, where you're going to fall. And if you make that list of your people, and you make that list of what you need, you will be so much more successful than trying to do it by yourself, because then you will be hurting and sick and feel worse and be frustrated because you're not able to do it on your own. So definitely get your tribe together.
Gather your tribe. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to send you both down into the green room, and you don't need to stick around down there if you don't want to, but if you're welcome to, of course. Thank you for being here, for sharing your story, for sharing your message, and for being part of this book, Embracing the Impact of Cancer. Today, this is the official launch day of the book. And so if you want to purchase a copy of it, go purchase a copy, even if you don't want to. No, just kidding. Yes, go purchase a copy of it at actiontakerspublishing.com/impact. It's available for $1.99 on Kindle, and just go and purchase that copy. If you're from a different country, you'll see all the different flags there. Click on the flag that is where you live and purchase the copy in that country. We're shooting for international bestseller status. The book is already a #1 bestseller in the US, but we're shooting for that international. So we could really use your help if you could buy it in different countries. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you ladies down, and it was a pleasure having you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Oh my gosh, that was great. And Sally, so let's see. Heather.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about today? How's this going for you?
Great. Yeah. I love to hear their stories, because I've heard them when I first talked to them, but I haven't heard them for, more. I haven't talked to them as much lately. So it's fun to see how they've owned it over time. Even though some of them in the beginning were a little nervous about trying to write a chapter, I know they're excited about it. I know Jess was the first chapter, I think, that was turned in. Hers was like immediately. So she's been
Yeah.
very patient because she had to wait for me to talk to all these other people and get them on board and everything. So she's been waiting a long time.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I'm loving the takeaways. Again, I'm just going to kind of recap. We have, selfish is not selfish, it's self-care. And so we do need to take care of ourselves. This is something that a lot of times, especially women, we're taught that we need to take care of others, watch over others, especially if you have little brothers and sisters, take care of take care of your sister, take care of your brother, right? Terms we heard, be positive, use the journey for good. Get better or get bitter. Also, you're not in this alone, and to gather your tribe and, asking for help and learning to flip it, like look at the other people's side of it to see if that's something that you can, move into and be able to ask them for that help. So super excited about what we're doing today. This book has been in the making for a little while. Quite a little while. And here it is today on the official launch day, Embracing the Impact of Cancer. These are transformational and inspirational stories of hope, and really looking for you to purchase a copy of the book today. So we're going to bring up our next guest in just a second, Becca McPherson, and we'll be back in 33 seconds. We're talking today about the book, Embracing the Impact of Cancer, Inspirational Stories of Hope. And we're looking for you to purchase a copy of that book today. This is the official launch day. You can go to actiontakerspublishing.com/impact. I'm the founder and CEO of Action Takers Publishing, and Sally Green is the Vice President of Author Development. As you saw in that commercial, several different books flew over the screen there. We're looking for authors in many of our books coming up. So if you're interested in becoming a best-selling author, then go to actiontakerspublishing.com/author and check out the different books that we have coming up and see if there's one that interests you to be part of. So Sally, what are you enjoying the most about today's guest?
Yeah, I love the fact that, you have this book now, and because none of us are, everyone is impacted by cancer when none of us comes out of it, and we all know somebody who's going through a struggle or going through a journey. We've all had family or friends that have heard those words, and a lot of times we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do. But now, having this physical book in hand, and when someone gets a diagnosis, say, here, here's some stories of people who have been through it, some people who have gone through it, and their stories. And especially like when you're first diagnosed, I think that having these stories to share with people is going to be huge for them. So I want to thank the authors for sharing their stories, but also for giving us the readers, and I'm going to encourage people to buy the physical book, to have it there for when somebody, or for you to read and then share it with somebody else. Because not just cancer. My husband had a stroke, so it's there's all kinds of different things in these stories. When you're faced with a difficult, life-threatening situation, it really does make you think about, okay, what's next in my life. And so to hear these stories of people who have come through it on the other end, who have, looked at the blessings and looked at their life in a different way because of this, and gone after their dreams because of this, where they were sitting idly by before, is just amazing. And I love that.
And that's a great point about the book is even if you yourself have not had cancer or don't have cancer, but and even if you don't know anybody who does, really buying this book and having it handy for somebody who may be diagnosed, or even just donating it maybe to a local hospital, donating it to a local cancer center, buy 10 of the books and donate them. You can do that as well. Just getting the message out there about how, cancer does not have to take you, because you can take it. And so these stories are really inspirational into, in the way that when we look at a diagnosis of something like, like you have cancer, a lot of times we may see it as like, my life's over, but how can you embrace that? And that's what this book is all about. And it's those stories of hope. So next we're going to, get your copy at actiontakerspublishing.com/impact. We're going to bring Heather Carter back up. And then we're also going to bring our next guest, Becca McPherson, up to the screen. Hello, Becca. How's everything going today?
Good, thanks. How are you all?
Doing great. The first thing we want to ask before we go into more questions, Becca, is that the title of your chapter is Choosing Unreasonable Hope. How did you come up with that chapter title?
So I came up with the chapter title because I have had in mind for a long, long time that kind of the theme of my journey and walk through cancer is really all about unreasonable hope. First of all, when you're faced with any kind of stage 4 cancer diagnosis, to say, I'm going to keep going and, I'm going to do what was set out for me to do is, in my view, automatically choosing an unreasonable hope. And I think when I talk about hope, I'm talking about hope really sort of in the faith-bearing sense of hope. And I think the unreasonable part is kind of this counterpoint with the way culture thinks about hope, which is, we'll just sort of make a bet and see if this works out. And I hope that it does. And so that unreasonable hope combines these ideas of what culture thinks about and how faith thinks about hope. So for me, I've always had that as sort of a marker in my mind for how I think about how I'm going to do this cancer journey. And so that's how I landed on the chapter title.
So, the thing is, how has your journey impacted your faith? Has it changed your faith? Has it increased your faith? And I know a lot of times when people struggle, they go for either one extreme or the other. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's changed my faith profoundly. I was already, I would say, well along in my faith journey, just partly by virtue of number of years lived. But I think the thing that I would say about my faith journey and how I've matured in it is it's just taken me so much deeper and so much closer, I guess I would say, to the heart of God. And I know in a way that I never knew before how much I'm loved and how much I'm loved by the creator of the universe, as well as how much I'm loved by the people around me. Because we just had this community that just, absolutely sprang up around us. That was profound. And it's hard. I can't imagine anyone not being impacted in some way at a faith level to see that kind of rallying of people and that, and to feel that sense of God just loving me.
Heather, have you experienced the same thing?
I think, yeah. I've been I would consider a person of faith my whole life, as far back as I can remember. But what cancer did with my faith is just burned away everything that just doesn't matter. And it really gave me a new sense of appreciation for people and who they are at their core, and not what they can do for me, not what they have, not what they look like, not what they appeared to offer, in society. It was just, it really just helped me see the soul and the core of who people were, no matter what the external things look like. It just burned that away from me. And so I have a lot more friends, hundreds more friends, doesn't sound right, than I had before cancer, between my nurses and doctors, and then just people, if I even so much as, if I see a person without hair, they're wearing a wig, I can tell people wearing a wig pretty easily, because for those of us who've had wigs, you can see when there's no hair coming out down here. And if I suspect someone has a wig on, or they have a do-rag on or something, and they clearly don't have hair, my kids are always like, oh no, here we go, she's going to talk to him. And I do every time, because I thought, you know what, we have a connection that that no one else has. And it doesn't matter that you don't know them at all, because there's a common ground. And I think that's what it's taught. Cancer has also taught me to look for the similarities, not the differences, and not just not having hair. But that's where I think where my awareness started. And it just continues. I look for that in everyone, to find a place, some common ground.
Yeah. Have you found those I call them God winks, those coincidences, where you're destined, or you know that, okay, I met this person and this was meant to be, because either they helped me or I helped them?
Oh, I've had countless interactions like that. I was at the gym a few months ago, really. And at first I was just observing this lady's arms, because they were so amazing. She was doing exercise and I was thinking, man, how does she do that? I'm gonna ask her how she gets arms like that. But as I was looking at her, I'm like, man, her hair is pretty perfect for being at the gym. And I don't know. And then I kind of just kept looking at her. Finally, I went and talked to her about her arms. And as I was closer, I could tell it was probably a wig. And so I didn't have to say much before, 3 minutes in, we were already talking about cancer. And if you got it, you spot it. It's not just if you spot it, you got it. It's like, if you already got it, you're going to spot it around you. So I just ask God for opportunities to be able to share my experience, strength, and hope with someone else. And now that's why I love this book, because I have another book and I do talk a lot about my cancer journey in it, but it's not just specific to cancer. So I do try to pass that out to people to encourage them. But this one I think will be even more impactful, because it's everybody's stories,
Yeah.
You can't argue with someone's story.
Exactly. Becca, have you had those experiences too? The God winks, that people that you've had these, could this be a coincidence?
For sure. I mean, so many of them. It's hard for me to pull up even just a couple of examples. One thing that I would offer up in terms of a God wink is. So I'm going to back up in storytelling just for a moment. When we got the diagnosis, and by I say we because it feels like it's a family diagnosis, that was in early January of 2019. And we were already in the international adoption process for, at the time, I guess he probably would have been 12 or 13 years old. And so we, kind of were just pursuing that. And then we got the diagnosis and we had to sort of get our wits about us. And one of the things that came to us is unless and until we hear a definitive no from God, we need to keep going. And so we kept going, but it took a long time. And of course, there was this great collision, which we could see coming from a mile off, between cancer and bringing this little boy home. And so one of the things that happened along the way, and this is where I get into the God wink part of the story, I was complaining to God, you know, in the middle of worship. Well, I should have probably been listening to the sermon, but I was complaining to God about how could it take this long to get this boy home? It seemed abundantly clear to me that that's what God wanted to have happen. But it wasn't happening, and it wasn't happening. And all of a sudden, just like a bolt from out of the clear blue sky, and some people will hear this and be like, she's a crazy woman. But what I can say is that out of the clear blue sky, I heard, not audibly, but I heard the words in my head, I'm giving him his testimony. And so he was still there because he had to still learn what he needed to learn and still play out his part of the story that needed to happen in, on the other side of the world in a country called Kyrgyzstan. And so to me, that's probably the clearest God wink that I ever had. That was just so so to the point about what my complaints were and also what God's purposes were. And so I remember it. I will always remember that moment because it just was profoundly impactful to me.
Yeah. I love when God speaks to me. It's just, so what would you say to someone today who hears those words and who gets the diagnosis? I mean, you've been through it. What is it that they need to know going forward? What are some things that they can expect?
Sure. I often get emails from people or calls from people, asking if they can connect me with this person who was recently diagnosed, as I'm sure many people do. And I almost always start out my emails the same way. And I say some version of the following, which is, it's not going to feel like it right now. It won't. But sooner or later, you will find your beauty in this journey. You're going to find beautiful things along the way. And it's probably not going to be because of cancer. It might be because your cancer is healed. And it might be just the people that you cross paths with. That, for me, that's the biggest thing, is just the people that we've crossed paths with in this journey that we've been on have been hugely impactful to our lives, and absolutely shining examples of beauty. And I have had people respond back to me who are months into the journey, and they said, I didn't understand what you meant. I didn't understand how it could possibly be beautiful, but now I'm starting to see it.
That's great. We talked earlier about how, when you guys are in this journey, how some people step up and then some people step away, and you lose maybe some toxic relationships, or people that you thought were going to help you wound up not helping you. Did you face that too?
I have to say that no, I don't. I can't say that there was anyone that I lost in the journey, honestly. And for that, I'm really grateful, because I know that there are people that have, and will continue to, unfortunately. I think for me, we have been surrounded by my own family. My husband's family is at a distance, as are my family, but we've been surrounded by our family. And we've been surrounded by our church family and just our community in profound ways. And those are the people who have really risen up to be our helpers and our partners in this journey. I would say that there are not in the sense of losing people, but there have been people that I want to call on for specific reasons because of a specific challenge point that I'm at, that I will reach out to more and more frequently at a particular crisis point. It's not because I've crossed somebody else off the list. It's just because there's a reason that God put that person into my life. And so I'm going to make darn sure that I'm going to reach out to them because I know they're the exact right person for me to talk to.
That's great. Heather, do you have any questions for Becca?
I don't know. I think that you're probably going to get to this question, but just what is your one thing that your chapter really is trying to communicate to anyone who's struggling with cancer? And I think you had a great answer for when someone's diagnosed, because it's hard to say it's all going to be okay. It's going to be okay, because the reality is it might not be okay, but they will be okay. And that's the part the only thing you can control is how you handle it, how you approach it. So what else, is there anything else that you want to say regarding your chapter that you just think, man, I'm so glad I got to say this because it's significant?
I think there's a couple of things. One is that I made the decision very early on after diagnosis. And it wasn't a decision so much as I think a little piece of insight probably that came from God. And that is that I'm not cancer's. I am God's. And that distinction in my mind has been kind of a North Star in terms of how to walk this journey. So I would say that is one part of it. I also think that it was critically important to me to, it's a diagnosis of cancer and all the things that come with it and the difficulties of treatment and all of that kind of stuff. It's exhausting and it's demoralizing. It can be if you let it be. And so I had to figure out very early on, what was I going to do with my feelings every day? And what was I going to do with my faith questions? And so I turned to writing. I love to write anyway. And so I started with a CaringBridge site. And I write about this a little bit in my chapter. But CaringBridge is a website, and there's many other options out there to just self-publish updates. CaringBridge happens to be a health-related one. So I just started putting out there kind of updates for family and close friends, and it just sort of grew and grew and grew from there. And I really started using it, even though I didn't intend to do that at first, as a place to kind of process my feelings and my the faith questions that I had. It brings up big questions of life, and so that's what I used that forum for. And it turns out that it resounded really, really, really strongly with people. And I got so much feedback from it. And it was feedback from people who were saying, this made a difference to me today. And I never intended that to be, I just intended it to be a place where I could process my stuff. And, if people wanted to read it, they could. But it never occurred to me that it would apply to other people in other areas of their life. And so that was pretty amazing for me to discover that. And so I would encourage, it doesn't have to be writing. It can be art, it can be public, it can be private, it doesn't matter. But this sense of you have to do something with your feelings and with those big questions that come up in your mind. You have to. I had to, I guess I should say. And I don't know how someone would get through an intense experience like this without an outlet to process those things. And so I would highly, highly recommend that for people. So
yeah, that's what I have 2 books, and they are just my journal entries basically from the time I had cancer until last week, because I realized that it healed my heart to talk about the things I was going through. But not only that my disease of cancer is in remission, but I have a soul sickness that is chronic. And there's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I have to get it out. And when I do that, and like you said, share it with other people, they are encouraged too. So it's kind of a win-win. It helps me, but it also helps other people walk through their stuff. And that's the part, the embracing the impact of cancer. that's the impact. Like cancer sucks. Cancer is not good. It will never be good. We don't love cancer. But we do embrace the impact that cancer had on our life and the way it caused us to make choices about how we handle people and our faith questions, all that. That's the embracing. That's the thing we're embracing, is the impact, not the cancer. We're using it for something good, just like we can choose to use anything in our life that comes along that we don't plan for or necessarily like. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. That saved my life to be able to do that too. So good for you for leaning into it, because some people don't. And those are people that don't always, it makes me sad when I see the people basically choosing to get bitter and not better. That's a sad cancer story,
Yeah. A lot of the stories I read in here infused humor into their journey. Has that helped you guys through? I mean, and do you have a humorous story that you can share about maybe something that happened, Becca?
She does. I can see.
I can see it.
It's humorous and also a little gross, but it's humorous, very humorous in retrospect. So one of the trips that we made to adopt our son, we finally did get him home. But by the way, on the last flight out of Kyrgyzstan before the borders closed because of COVID, the very last flight. So that's no laughing matter when you think that your husband and your son might be stuck in a country for a while. But one of the 3 trips that were required for bringing him home, one of them, the second one that we were on, I developed a nasty stomach virus, and probably confounded by the fact that I had cancer and all that. But I mean, it was clear to me that I had never been so sick and never been sick like that before with cancer. So it was very clear to me that it wasn't cancer. But our translator who was there with us, who was the sweetest, most beautiful woman in the world, she knew my story. And, as we're like in this mess and it's just terrible and, all this, it was just awful situation, but funny in retrospect. And somewhere in the midst of all this chaos, she just leaned over to me and she said, "Becca, I need to know, is this cancer?" And she's whispering it in my ear. And I said, "No, this is not cancer. I'm positive that it's not." And then they finally took me. I had to spend a night in the hospital in Kyrgyzstan, which is not a great place to be checked into a hospital, I will say. And they have no elevators, and I'm not a small human being. And so I had 4 people on 4 corners of a stretcher, and they almost dropped me as they were going on. So it sort of went from bad to worse. But in retrospect, it's just hilarious, because honestly, there's some stuff in everybody's life, but there's some stuff in the cancer journey in particular that you just cannot make up. And this is one of them.
Heather, do you have a humor story you'd like to share?
Oh man, yeah, I did have several. I was in the hospital for about 70 days. So I don't really think of my cancer story. I think of some of my hospital stay stories. But this is my favorite one. So I was in ICU for 10 days and intubated, and that was the whole deal. But when I woke up, I couldn't talk, walk, sit up, roll over, anything. I was 44. I went home with a shower chair and a walker, which that's not the funny part. That was definitely not funny. But while I was in ICU, I had this great idea to save up all my morphine so that I could have a really, really good night's sleep. So I just, they have a limited amount that you can have. So I just saved it all up and gave myself a bunch of morphine. And then it caused me to not sleep at all. So I'm awake watching Cheers or something in the middle of the night. And while I was scrolling through the channels, I barely could talk. I could kind of whisper because my throat had still been affected by being intubated. And I came across this channel, and it was a QVC channel, and they were demonstrating this makeup. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if I had that makeup, I would look so beautiful. I have to have that makeup. That's the answer. I'm going to look like a movie star if I buy that makeup. So I called QVC from ICU on morphine. I remember it like very clearly. And the guy kept saying, I can't hear you very well. Can you speak up? And I was like, no, I'm in the ICU. I have cancer and I just was intubated. I can't talk any louder. So I ordered this makeup and I had to pick a foundation color even. I don't know how I did that. I ordered makeup and gave them my credit card from memory while in ICU on morphine. And so the next day, my husband, I said, if you see some weird charge come through, I think I ordered some makeup in the night. And he said, I saw that. He thought it was our son, our college age son. He thought, what is he ordering now at 3 a.m? So like 2 weeks later, it did actually show up to my house and I still have the little bag it came in and everything. But that's one of my favorite stories because I just remember thinking that was the answer to any beauty issue I had. It was going to be this makeup. And so I thought I had to order it right then. So I did. I've never before or since ordered anything off QVC. So that's one of many crazy stories.
I got addicted to QVC when my daughter was an infant and she would be up in the middle of the night. And I knew all the hosts and everything. So it was, yeah. So, thank you, Becca, for being here. Is there one last thing you want to share with the readers? One last thing you want to tell the readers of this book before you head out?
Yeah, I would just say back to kind of the mindset that it brought into me with the start of my cancer journey, and it turned into the title of this chapter, is just embrace unreasonable hope. You do not know what God is going to do with this journey that you're on. You can't imagine all the twists and turns that you're going to take. But in the end, there's more good than bad that comes out of it, in at least in my experience. And so I would just really, really encourage people to embrace this whole notion of be unreasonable in the hope that you bring into this fight.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story in this amazing book.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone head on over to Action Takers Publishing /impact and get your copy of the book. We're asking everyone to get over there and purchase the Kindle version today. And Heather, what do you think of so far of the launch?
Oh, I love it. I love to hear everyone's stories firsthand again. Like I was saying earlier, I sort of interviewed people when I reached out to them to see if they were interested in sharing their story, but I haven't talked to many of them since, and I haven't even had a chance to sit down and read the whole thing. Right when this came out, it was coming out the week my son got married. So last week. So my son was getting married and the wedding was here in Springfield and they're from California and it was at their house. So it was very wild times. And then I immediately got in a car and drove to Las Vegas with my daughter. So I feel like I'm just kind of herky jerky. I got my book and I've just been carrying around, but I have literally not been alone to sit and read all the stories yet. So I just love to hear them firsthand too from people, hear their
perfect. We're going to break for a commercial and then we're going to have Susan come up and we're going to talk to her. So stand by. and we are looking at embracing the impact of cancer. This is available now on Amazon, and we are interviewing a bunch of the authors who have shared their stories and their journeys of dealing with cancer, of hearing those words, "You have cancer," and what that meant for them and the journey that they went through. And so I'm happy today to invite Susan up. Susan Dannenberger is one of our newest #1 best-selling authors of the book. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. And your chapter is you're in chapter 13.
Lucky number 13. Yeah.
There you go. My raisin. All right, you're gonna have to read it.
Oh, sure. It's raison d'etre. It's French for my reason for being, but I love that word because I'm also a winemaker and I work with grapes, which is raisin in French. So it's almost like a play on words as well.
Oh, cool. So how did you come up with that title and what does that mean for you?
I had always thought that the winery that I opened 10 years ago was my reason for being. And so I have learned to accept that my other, reason for being is to be fighting cancer and to spread the word about, little tips and ways to get through it.
I love that. So how has this journey impacted you? What has it meant for you, and has it changed your life?
Oh, of course, cancer changes everyone's life, but I have to live with it. I'm stage 4, so I will, always have it. And so having to live with it feels like a little different than just surviving, having had it. And I have to still work, and I want to still have, my dreams and my hopes of the winery and making wine and having a music venue. So trying to merge those two together has been a fun journey. At first, I was really angry. I thought it was going to ruin, my dreams. And I thought I was going to have to put those aside and I wasn't going to be able to have those dreams. So finding a way to take a new path and still stay kind of where I want to go has been a definite learning curve for me.
And how have you wrapped your mind around it? How has your mindset affected your journey, and has it been difficult for you to shift your mindset into that going after that recovery?
It took me several years of fighting it in my head and still just ignoring, almost having two separate lives and just ignoring the fact that I had cancer on one hand and then I had a business on the other. And my business is also very public. So, where people see me all the time at the winery and want to talk. And so I had to eventually accept that I was just going to have to talk about it. And I'm glad I did, because I think I was hiding behind something and trying to be like appear perfect and everything's great. And then being able to just like let people in. And then once I let people in, I started learning from them. And then I started finding new things to do. And they started bringing me new, I guess, experiences, So for instance, because of going back and trying to find, a reconstructive doctor, Dr. Nicole Summer, I developed some really great friendships with that department at SIU. And then they sponsored me to walk in a New York Fashion Week for Anna Ono. And then that moved into meeting more women with stage 4, from all over the country. And, being in New York and Fashion Week was something most women think that would be the coolest thing ever. And it really was. So, there's some things you don't expect, just like your previous author, but before me, embracing those unexpected things. I would never have thought any of those things would be something I would do.
I see Heather down there shaking her head. Heather, do you want to comment?
No, I I'm glad you shared that, because if you didn't, I was gonna have to ask you to share it anyway, because yeah, that is just something, the things that that's the part about the impact of cancer, is that we get to do things that we would have never done. I mean, there is no way in the world I would have ever written a book if I hadn't been through some pretty bad stuff. And that seems to be how life goes. It's interesting how we want our lives to be easy and good and fun, yet not just us, but anyone that you look at that's done amazing things and impacting the world, their life it's come often out of tragedy or suffering. And I love to hear the things that we get to do that we would have never been able to do. I'm speaking at a cancer survivor event in Springfield. Susan, make sure you come to that. That's on the 24th this month for all of the area. And being able to do some women's retreats around the country. I probably would have still had some story, but I don't think that I wasn't as impactful to others, because I hadn't hit my proverbial bottom the way I have because of my cancer and some other things that were going on in my world that were some of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And cancer is tough, but it isn't the hardest thing people go through. I've been through some relational things, some other things in my world that I think I might rather do cancer again than do those again, to be honest. So, yeah, the impact, the things that we get to do because of it are significant. So I love, Susan has a lot of those. You know, Susan, I was one of those people that I accosted because I'm like, oh, well, she has breast cancer. She's going to be my friend because we have a common disease. And so I just, stalked her at her winery and asked if she wanted to have coffee or something. So, I don't have time to waste. I'm not messing around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Susan, how has the support for, you talked about how other people have helped you out. How has that worked for you? And did anybody surprise you that stepped up?
Oh yeah. Honestly, it's so funny. It's happening when it happens. It's usually at my business, at my winery, and I'm working. And then somebody like Heather, for instance, walks in and said, hey, I heard, can we talk? And it becomes this two-way street where I'm learning as much as I'm giving. And that has been the surprise for me, because I decided a few years ago that, well, if I have this platform, my place, and if I'm, going to be, out in the community doing different projects because of the winery, I might as well use it. And I thought I was going to be the one, spreading, awareness or, whatever it is about drugs or about insurance or, all these little tidbits that we work through with cancer. And instead I am just reaping as much as I sow, which is, I didn't expect that. And it's been wonderful because there's always those little things that you don't know, and you don't know how to ask for it because you don't even know that you should ask for it. And then somebody tells you about it and you're like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so it's definitely been customers coming to the winery. Honestly, it really has.
Awesome. So what prompted you to say yes to the book? What prompted you to say, you know what, I'm going to write a chapter in a book? Why did you put yourself out there like that?
It took some work from Heather, honestly. I was like, I don't really have anything to say. Who wants to read this? I guess I thought it would be, too much negativity, just, about cancer, and nobody wants to hear all that stuff. I don't want to hear all that. And then, when she talked about all the good things, she helped me see some of the good things that I've experienced because of cancer. And I know that sounds like insane. It sounds backwards, but it's true. And so once I realized, oh yeah, really, I never would have had all these opportunities if I didn't have cancer. I wouldn't have met these people if I didn't have cancer. I probably wouldn't have stepped out of my box. I probably wouldn't have, gone so hard on my winery if I didn't have cancer, because I want to say yes to so many things now because of it. I wouldn't have tried that. So it was definitely prompting from Heather.
That's awesome. Now,
Prompting / bullying, but whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was to the point where I walked, in a runway in New York in my underwear, and I thought that was easier than writing a chapter in a book. And
Well,
I still kind of feel that way. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
well, that's
You're
what I
so
was going
laid
to ask you
bare.
next. Go
You
ahead.
know, when we write, it's you, your insides outside, and that's different. That's a whole different thing. But yeah, when she was saying, I'm not sure what I would have to say, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have seen that you walked on a runway, you created a wine for the oncology department where I got my, I was like, what more exactly do you think you need to have to talk about, So she was like, oh yeah, there's that.
I guess.
So what was the process like in actually sitting down and writing for this? Was that like another whole difficult thing for you, or did the word just come out?
Oh yeah, it was definitely hard for me. It took me months, and I just did like a quick outline of my, kind of just the journey itself, just the basic details. And then I went through and I filled it in. And then once I started doing that, and usually it was some late nights, I'll be honest, most of the time it was like somewhere between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and a bottle of wine. Because I was just so nervous. I don't know what I was nervous about. It wasn't like anybody was looking over my shoulder at the time, but it was tough for me. And I want to do it again. I want to do some more though. I think it's also good. I think it's really good.
Well, my saying is, once you've been in a collaboration book, it's kind of like opening a bag of potato chips. You can't stop at just one. It's and that's what happened to me. I got into one and then another, and it was just so much fun. And the people that you meet through this, and you all have, I don't know if you've reached out to the other authors in this, but you
Yes.
all have this in common, and you always will. So it's having that camaraderie and having that group now of that community of people that makes being in these collaboration books so much fun.
Yeah. And, Sally, that's one thing I would say while we're on that topic is for Susan or anybody else who's listening or any of the other authors, is that if you go to the Action Takers publishing site, they list all the topics of books that are preparing to be published that need more authors. So it's a great time to just, I have several friends who are in numerous collaboration books through Action Takers Publishing, and because there's so many different ones that our stories fit into, and cancer isn't the only thing that that's not our only niche. So check those out. You can just be in all of them.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the, exactly. But that's, one of the things I love about what we do is we come up with all those different topics and come up with all the different things that people have been through, and where can they share their stories. And it's just a great outlet. And I think it's a great way to heal. To heal yourself through writing and then sharing your story and having other people read it and then come back to you. If you is this your first time, Susan, writing?
It is. I did a magazine article for it's a breast cancer magazine called Wildlife. Or Wildfire, I'm sorry. I did that maybe just a couple months ago, but I was already in the process of writing this chapter for the book when I said, okay, if I can write a chapter for a book, I can probably write a little magazine article. So that came out a few weeks before this. And so that dipped my toes in it. But you're right. I already want to have time to sit down and do this. So I'm like, okay, the vineyard's really busy right now as far as working in there, the grapes. And I'm like, as soon as that dies down a little, I kind of want to get back to writing some more. It's addicting.
Have you experienced, have people reached out to you because of your writing? And what has that been? You know, people said, hey, you know, I read it, or I got the book, or I've read your article. And what's been the response?
It's been good so far. I was nervous too. I was like, oh gosh, people are going to read this. And what are they going to say? And so far, everybody's been really excited to read it. And then I've also read some of the other chapters. A couple of the women in the book are actually local. So I didn't know them. And I'm like, oh, well, how did I not know your story? So it's been also very bonding. And it's also nice to just hear other perspectives. And you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about it that way. It's definitely a community. I love it. I like being part of this.
And I was going to say, Susan, I'll be in touch with you because I've been concocting this idea in my head about some sort of celebration or book signing or something, either at your place or at my office or somewhere local, because we do have probably 3/4 of the authors are from this area. So to do something where we can all get together, meet face to face, and then, you know, invite friends and family to come in and do book signings or something, just have a little party and celebrate it. So
it's a great idea.
There you go. Little wine party. Might have to fly out to join you guys. But
her place is amazing. Yeah, you'll have to look it up. My favorite.
That sounds great. One of the books, Susan, that we have coming up is called Unstoppable Fearless Female Entrepreneurs that you might be perfect for. And we're still capturing and looking for authors in that book as well as a few other books.
Ooh.
But this is our book cover. And right now, I think we have probably about half a dozen women already signed up for that book, and we're still looking for authors. So if anybody out there is interested in being part of that, reach out to myself or Lynda. Just go to actiontakerspublishing.com. There's a way at the bottom to connect with either one of us, and we'd love to talk to you about how to go about it and how to get you guys set up in being part of the journey and joining us in one of our upcoming multi-author books.
I think that would be cool.
That's and I love that that top, you know, being unstoppable. It's I think, you know, we all need that, right?
Oh yeah.
So before we head out, Susan, was there anything else that you wanted to maybe, you know, have the readers of your chapter? What do you want them to take away from your chapter?
So when I first got cancer the first time, and even when it came back the second time, I was determined that I was going to be able to handle this. And because of my work and the way the work schedule set up, I was doing most of the appointments, radiation, even my chemo by myself. And I was like, so proud of that. I was doing it by myself. I don't need any help. And it has only been the past few years where I've accepted help, and not just maybe going to treatments or anything, but just all kinds of forms of help. And once I felt that relief of the burden, and I realized, oh, wow, this isn't that hard to have help. I found that those people that helped me helped also uplift me, you know, in other areas of my life, not just helping me through my cancer journey. So I've learned to say yes. I know a lot of times people are like, they need to learn to say no. I needed to learn to say yes. And that's been my takeaway for sure with this cancer journey.
Yeah, I think that's been a common thread through everybody that we've talked to today, is that, you know, accepting the help, accepting that I need some help through this. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's a woman thing that we think, you know, we're just so used to taking care of everybody else that for us to be the ones that people take care of is, you know, is outside of what we think. So thank you, Susan, for being part of this book, for joining us in this journey, and you know, and think about the Unstoppable book and
I
join
am.
us.
I am thinking about it.
And we're going to head out to a commercial, and we're going to bring someone else up in a little bit. Thank you, Susan, for being part of this.
Thank you. And thank you, Heather. Thank you, Heather.
Little commercial, little cheetah jumping out of the book. Here we go. We are launching today, Embracing the Impact of Cancer. All of these women have heard those words, you have cancer. They've written their stories, their inspirational stories of hope. They're all in here. And we're so lucky to have them as be part of this book and part of this journey. We're going to be speaking with a couple other authors today. We have Patty and Tamara here. Heather, it's great to have you with me. Lynda's got some issues with her voice today, and so she's backstage doing all the all the tech stuff. So Tamara, Patty, thank you for being here and for being part of this journey with us. Tamara, I'm going to start with you, and your chapter is in the book. You are a journey of love.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that title, and what does that mean to you?
Well, thank you for asking, and thank you for having this. I'm so so proud to be a part of this book and Journey of Love. I'll be honest, I had my chapter written. It was a completely different chapter. I was ready to turn it in. And I felt so inspired. In fact, I was held back. Anybody that's ever been held back on something, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I was like, why am I feeling this right this minute? And had to explore that a little bit. Didn't send it in. And then I realized, you're supposed to have a completely different chapter. And so I went deep into why. And I was up for 3 days, praying, fasting, and really going into what is it that I'm supposed to share in this opportunity to let people know that they can live through life. And it really came to me in that time. It was a question that came to me, and that is, what is life? What is life? And I start out in my chapter asking the dear readers, those that are picking up this book, that are willing to take the time to read it, what is life? And through it, I talk in my chapter about life. And I am a survivor. Yes. I'm one of 5 and 4 generations. Yes. All different, types. Yes. But it's more than that. It's for those that are not hearing those 6 letters, that have not heard those 3 words, that have not gotten that call. This is about the human race. This is about our journey in life. And I believe that 4-letter word, love, holds the power of what it is that this life experience is all about. And I go into more in the chapter. I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Gosh,
there you go.
There's tech stuff going on here. I know we ran into that with your interview too.
Right.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that and for being part of this journey. And we're going to move over to Patty. Tell us a little bit about your chapter in the book, and your title is Embracing the Impact of Cancer. So
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I just kept it straightforward.
the title of the book really spoke to me and my journey for writing my chapter. And I can relate to Tamara wholeheartedly. I had written and thought I had what was supposed to be. And then the more I reflected and like just prayed and really dug into my heart about it, I just had this epiphany that one day it's like, no, this is what it really is about, really embracing the fact that I did have cancer, that did happen. Like others I've heard interviewed, it's like we power through things. And, I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to look weak. And so having the experience of being able to really dig deep and pray about it and get close to the whole experience gave me the ability to embrace the whole experience in my life and to, again, just take something that was hurtful and fearful and ugly and completely scary and turn that around with God's grace and become an author. It was amazing.
Is this your first time?
It is.
I love our first time authors. It's great how, so sitting down and actually writing your story. Were you a writer before? Had you written stuff before, or was this kind of all new to you?
Yeah, just journaling mostly. So a few things here and there, but nothing like majorly published. So that was
So was the journey of writing, was that healing for you also?
Yes, tremendously. I had thought little on up I was going to be a journalist and writer, and that didn't work out in my life in college. And so I kind of abandoned that whole part and thought, I had it on the someday list. And so finally it was like, enough of the some days after the experience with cancer and realizing that, it's up to me to really choose life and to choose happiness and to just get out there and take advantage of all the opportunities, just say yes. Absolutely.
So what was it that made you say yes? Was it
well, my good friend Heather, she reached out to me, and I just seen how brave and courageous, and she'd been through her experience. I didn't know her when she had cancer. I met her right after, but I just saw the resilience in her and her faith. And then when she reached out to me and said that she was creating this collaborative book, I listened to what it was all about. And I just said, yes. I said, I'd love to be a part of it and just be able to support her and to have that experience of becoming an author.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Tamara, was the process of writing, was that therapeutic for you also?
Always. 100%. I have been also a journaler since I was in grade school. I started with, probably with crayons. And I have all of my journals from the time that I was young until today. And I have them for every single year. And so I've always believed in the power of writing. This particular book and this particular experience and your team has been, I will say, a gift. You don't always see that. And I have been a part. I've loved the experience every single time I've been involved in a book. I will say that this one, that it has been an unusually amazing gift and experience for me in every single aspect of it. The domino effect of just this whole experience. So, am I proud of being a part of this? And am I actually left Lynda Sunshine West a message. I know her very well. We were in Impactor together. And I said, I am ever so impressed with you and your team. Hats off to what you've done. Because I've known her for so many years. And you cannot have a more professional experience than the one I've had. And so therapeutic, yes. Writing, I will say, especially for anybody that's facing any kind of trial in your life, writing the experience down daily, even if it's one word, is powerful. And I would then go further and say, while you're writing, take 5 thoughts, people, places, things, and write your gratitude also while you're writing. And then you can go back and then you'll see how powerful those words are.
Yeah, I love, in the morning I get up and, I have my little meditation that I do before I even get out of bed. And then I get up and I write things that I'm grateful for. So having that gratitude is so, and it helps you. It helps you to go forward and with your mindset. And we talked a little bit earlier about, having that positive mindset when something like this happens. So, Tamara, you want to just talk into that? What does that mean? Having, and what did your mindset, how did you develop a mindset that helped you get through it?
Well, I will say again, because I am one of 5 people in 4 generations that have experienced this gift. And I talk about that in the chapter. It is a gift. Anything in life can be a gift. It's the way we look at it. When I experienced mine, I didn't cry. I went the very first day. I won the side effect, award, the most that my doctor had ever seen. And through the whole experience, what my doctor had to share really helped. I went in there knowing I was going to make it. I had no doubt. And then he confirmed, he's like, and the nurses, I met a buddy. That's a whole nother story. However, I met a buddy. We traveled the journey together. We got to be known as Double Trouble and the Party Bus Mindset. We would drive together once we were released and able to do that, because we had 1.5 years of every 3 weeks having to go to the magic room. And so we would do that. And they said they knew we were on property. They said they knew when the rubber met the pavement that we were there. The frequency of the building changed. Mindset. Then it was a matter of my doctor. He said, did you realize that there's studies? And so we were talking about being alone versus having community. In 2017, out of England, there is a study that you have a chance, a percentage of living longer if you are socialized. If you're isolated, male or female, your 5-year chance has gone down by percentages. It's science. And also mindset. And so the whole I am, it is huge. Our words are powerful, written and verbal. Mindset, then using our words to say, I am healed. I am okay. I am leaving a legacy of this experience. Mindset is critical, my doctor would say, in survival. They have the medical, they have the magic potions, if you will, but we have to meet them where we're coming from, and whatever choice we make, be it traditional, alternative, or adjunctive therapies, we need to show up with the I am healed mindset. It's critical.
Patty, I see you shaking your head. Do you agree? And what's been your experience? How has your mindset helped you through?
Yeah, definitely. Again, just my lot of prayer and turning it, giving it up, surrendering it. And I think one of the biggest things I learned by writing the chapter again was, I think like Tamara was just saying, all this, it's a day. Every day is a gift, and all this comes your way. And how you perceive it and how you look at it makes all the difference. Like if you see it as a curse and it's horrible and just this thing that you can't bear, then that's how that's going to appear and be for you. And the quicker I feel that you can embrace, I just love that word embrace, because I kept just meditating on that throughout my writing. And it was the quicker you can embrace it and just say, yes, it's, this is occurring, and find what all the alternatives are. Don't be afraid. Fear is not going to get you anywhere other than more sick in your mind and your body. And yeah, just being out there, be brave, and to just really yeah, that mindset, like Tamara's saying, is so important. And it's probably one of the hardest things to do, though, right? It's like, ugh. And I don't think that, I know that for myself, I couldn't do it by myself. It was really having faith and turning it over and surrendering the whole, the news, the whole experience. And even the year after and the year after that, the scans, that the impact that really wasn't something that I expected. I thought, oh, this is all behind me now and everything's cool and good. And then a year would pass and I'd be like, oh, I get a call. It's time to go have the scan. I sit, and my brain at first would be like, no, like, what's that about? And I'd be like, oh, you know what it's about. Let's just go, And so, yeah, just writing and having the ability to sort through all that on such an intimate level with God was very healing for me. And it gave me the ability now to really have that capacity that when something happens, I don't let myself get in my head with all this negative self-speak and self-talk and dwell in that. It's like that gets me nowhere. It's like, give that up, let it go, and just be present and stay present and allow God to enter in and do what God wants to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So one of the things that I noticed throughout the reading a lot of the chapters is a lot of times you guys used humor in your in your journey. So how has, being able to laugh at yourself or being able to laugh with others impacted you and brought this journey and made this journey maybe bearable? Tamara.
I face life with humor. Anybody that knows me is like, okay, I was raised in a family where humor is how we dealt with a lot of things. It's a very healthy attitude, as long as the humor is like, okay, I like it G-rated, to be honest with you. Not always, everybody does. However, even in what I do now, there's 5 words that we go with: humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love. Humor was the first one in that. It was thought out very, very much. In fact, there's a story out there that there was someone that was deeply sick, very, very ill, and in the hospital, basically to say goodbye to everyone, and was like, no, not ready to check out. Had a TV brought in. This is pre, all the day and age of what we've got now. Had a TV brought in, had all sorts of videos or whatever it was at the time, the technology, very funny, nothing else but funny. And that person did nothing but laugh. And that person made it through and continued living. You could say mindset, however, humor. And we have a community, a global community now of people that are affected by this. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we do the most is we laugh, and we laugh about the silly things that happen to us. Because when you're in this club and you're going through whatever choice you went through, you're going to have just about every single thing happen. Our bodies change, this and that. We're going through this journey of life, journey of love. And, it's like, okay. And at first it was almost like, okay, someone actually said this, can I laugh about that? Like, I've been diagnosed, am I allowed to laugh? I'm like, laugh it away, laugh all you want plus more, because it also is said, anybody that understands this is, even if we're fake laughing, our body doesn't necessarily understand that. And then there are healing properties that take place. And so laughter is actually extremely helpful for the healing process. So laugh all you want. We're really big about, if I can say it, poop humor. I mean, anybody that's been through it, they totally get it. We laugh a lot about that, Yep.
Patty, has humor gotten you through?
I definitely, like everywhere in life, I can let something get in my head, and like I said, and then I can get grumpy about it and grumble. But I know the minute they start turning it around, that I always look at my guardian angel too, and I'm just like, that we can find some humor in stuff. And when I know I start to get that giggle and that laugh and look at the absurdity of some things, it just changes it all up. And then I know that, like, I'm back on track. I'm on the right path here, and I'm unstoppable. This isn't gonna, like, hold me back.
Is there a particular story you can share that you can think of?
Just like in the book, I remember when I was writing it, like, even coming through to that end, like embracing firsts in my life, and I was seeing how some of the firsts, and I'm like thinking about growing up on the farm, and my first puppy, my first horse, like all these things I embraced, and it was like the coolest ever. And so that's like in the book when I said, I can honestly say that embracing cancer wasn't like my first puppy, but but if you can change it up in such a way, like how beautiful is that? Like, it's just as important and just as beautiful, and like Tamara said earlier, just as a gift from God as anything. So that just comes to mind.
So I'm going to go back to you, Tamara, and talk a little bit about the support that you received through this. Were there people that stepped up that surprised you? Were there people that, maybe toxic relationships that ended, or people that, didn't step up that you thought would?
That's a great question. In fact, my whole life changed because of that particular subject. When I was first diagnosed, I'm one of 5 people in 4 generations straight down that have heard this word. Those 3 words, and I was not the first one of them all. And so we had kind of been through this drill. And at the time, I had 4 generations living in my home, and it was Christmas time, going into Christmas time, and I'm very much a Girl Scout. I'm a type A+ personality, trying to be a recovering one, and I got everything ready, Christmas tree up, things wrapped, cards out, gonna go live. I did not expect what was going to happen, and it really was what changed, and the support piece of it. Really, it does open your eyes to everything in life. And what happened was that my very first day of chemotherapy, I did go traditional, adjunctive really, but my first day of chemotherapy, I had a severe allergic reaction where bottom line is I nearly died, and they saved me. And that experience created this buddy. I was not online at the time, no digital anything. And every year I get the anniversary of having Messenger, being a part of this whole system, because I met one person through this experience. And she and I ended up doing all this, messengering. Well, I lost my voice during it, and my family ended up with bronchitis in the family home. I was put in isolation before COVID. I was not allowed into the family house at Christmas time. I did not have any kind of app where I could, look at anybody. I couldn't see them through the door. They weren't allowed to come to the door. They would leave trays of food for me, and I would go and get them. And my whole active treatment, I was put in isolation. The critical piece of not feeling alone, number one, mindset. Yes, I have a belief in a higher power also. So I never felt alone anyway. However, this right here, because I didn't have a voice, I can't get on a phone, didn't know any kind of, filming thing, but I knew how to type. So we would type, and we would have, and it was the first time I'd ever seen where you have to go up and down for a conversation. And I would be like bobbing sometimes and laughing to myself. That was critical. That was critical for that. What also happened was that the amount of love that I experienced for people wanting to give support but not being able to see me because I was put in isolation was that I discovered that you could also write and send out like blog kind of stuff. And the support that I received through that from family and friends, I will say that the thing that shocked me the most was some people that I hadn't even talked to maybe for a decade showed up, and they were sharing their love and their energy and their frequency for healing. And I believe that many times that when dark days happen, it can, there can be those toxic things that go away, and we can say, thank you for being in my life. I appreciate you. Okay, I'm going on. But what also happens is that these people show up that you don't even know that they're going to. And that is another gift and miracle in this whole experience, is allowing, like it was been talked about, allowing for that. And I will tell you that there were times where, you talk about humor or attitude, like to get through 1 second was difficult for me. I will not sugarcoat it. I had many, many, many horrible side effects. However, I would, to myself, I'd be, okay, if by chance you meet a frown, do not let it stay. Quickly turn it upside down and smile that frown away. And then I would count my blessings, and I would read what these people were saying, the support and love I was receiving, a journey of love. I was receiving it. And to this day, I'm grateful. And some of them, this is the other miracle I'll leave on, some of them came for that season in time. And then they went. But they showed up when I needed the most miracles.
Yeah, we talked, Heather talked about that earlier. So Patty, did you experience the same thing, having people that you unexpectedly show up?
Oh, yes, definitely. And just getting back to my faith and church, and I had the unfortunate experience though of like my surgery was like March of 2020, like right when everything struck for the pandemic. So everybody was kind of leaving stuff at my doorstep for me and taking care of me from a distance. But it was definitely, very loving and support from afar, and just coming for me, it was really the awakening of getting, going through the whole thing and writing this book was to really kind of get myself off autopilot. I had been through, several blows coming up to the cancer. I lost my husband, I lost my mom, and then it was like boom, 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 there's the cancer. And so I kind of had shut down, and I was just like, I got through this now, and I guess I'm just gonna like level off and exist. And man, that is not what God wanted for me at all. So yeah, definitely a wake up call, and that chiseling, that all this is just chiseling, and God's making me a masterpiece, and making everyone a masterpiece through the chiseling that happens in their life. And he just wants us to be happy and to flourish and grow and be who he intended us to be.
Yeah. Have you grown more spiritual through this process? Has it affected your faith?
Oh, completely. Yes, completely. It's just grown and grown. It continues just kind of exponentially. It's amazing. Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you. We're talking about embracing the impact of cancer. If you're interested in getting a copy of this book, head on over to actiontakerspublishing.com/impact and get your copy. You don't want to miss out on these stories. These women have poured out, and we have a guy in here too, right? They've poured, a couple guys in here too. They've poured out their stories in this book, and we are just so blessed to be part of this with you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And before we go, I'm just going to ask you to just share maybe one thing you want the readers to take away before we head out. Patty, what's one thing you want the reader of your chapter to take away from your story?
Just believe in yourself. And if you have a someday list, like, don't wait for someday. Pick one today, and just start taking actions. Don't talk about it in your head anymore. Don't talk about it with everybody else. Just take that action and be brave, and you'll be amazed at where it will take you.
Thank you for sharing that. Tamara?
I'm going to say something that I wrote in here, and it's it's that You have been given a priceless gift in anything, any kind of trial. You've been given a priceless gift. And the gift of understanding the importance of life. Life is truly a gift. That's why, as they say, we call it the present. Live with your present and see what, sometimes it might be a surprise present. You never know what's in there, and miracles happen. Absolutely 100%. Miracles happen.
Thank you so much. Heather, we've come to the end of it. What do you think about today, about the book launch, about all the interviews?
Oh, it's been amazing. I just love hearing people's stories directly from them. It's one thing to read about it. And even with some of them, I was part of their journey, but, we don't always sit and take time to discuss, how all the things that it's impacted. So I'm grateful that everyone's willing to do it. I know it can be a scary thing to get on live, TV, basically, you're out there, and but it's just awesome that you're willing. The reason I wanted to do this book is because I believe that, like I said, we go through what we go through so we can help others get through what we went through. And I remember my oncologist telling me, when I had my last blood work done, he said, in a few months, you're not even going to remember that this happened. And I thought, oh, no, thank you, friend. If that happens, what is all this for? If I don't do anything with this and we just let's all just put it behind us, and that so many people don't want to talk about it ever again. I think what a waste of experiences and life changes and opportunities to not only grow in your own faith journey or, become a better person, but to help someone else who's going through what you've been through. And I don't want to waste any of the things I go through by keeping them all to myself. You talked about journaling and how that helps you. You have all your journals. Well, Tamara talks about that. I have several journals, and I remember reading them. I've had them for my whole life, and I was reading some of them not too long ago. And I remember just kind of screaming at myself, like, tell somebody. All of it was a lot of things I was going through, but I was going through them in my journal between me and God only. And I didn't share it with anyone else because I didn't want to look weak, or I didn't want to scare anyone to death, whatever it was. And now that's the main thing that cancer has done for me, is prompted me to share more of what's on the inside, get it outside, and use it not only to help me gets my ego out of the way, and instead of trying to appear perfect, that I share vulnerably with other people about what I'm going through and hopefully help someone else. So I still journal, but now my journal is my blog, and it's out there for hundreds of people to read, for better or for worse. They might be like, please stop sharing all that. But I'd rather err on that than to keep those secrets that keep me sick, So my goal for this book is just to provide opportunities for us to share our experience, strength, and hope with other people so they can get better also, no matter where they're at, whether it's cancer or, like you said, it's not just cancer, it's all of life.
Yeah. So if you're watching and you're interested, head out over to actiontakerspublishing.com/impact, get your copy. And while you're there, go to actiontakerspublishing.com and check out the other books. We are currently I think there's 9 or 10 books that we're currently looking for authors for. And so if you've enjoyed this journey, if you want to go on a journey, if you have a story that you want to share, go look through those books and choose one and join us. We would love to have you join us on one of our next adventures. So,
and Sally, I was also going to say, I know Lynda was reminding people that you can get the book on Kindle today for $1.99. Is that right?
Yep. You can get on Kindle today.
Encourage, the other thing that she wanted us to encourage people to do is to share that link or something, however you want to talk to someone about if you know anyone in other countries.
Right.
Because
We're trying to go international with this book. So if you know someone in Canada, in Europe, in Mexico, share the link with them.
Australia, I think, was one. I have a few friends there, so that would help. We've already gone national bestseller, but this is an opportunity to go international bestseller. So share it with people you know around the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. Thank you for being part of this book. And we will see you soon.
Thank you.